Don't fall.
Jeff and Janki Show.
It is indeed. Wake up, Rancho Cucamonga, and all the ships at sea.
And when you look up to see our replays, look for the Jeff and Janki. Don't look up the Jeff Sargent Show. That's going to be on Adult Swim soon. That's going to be a wacky TV show. Now it's the Jeff and Janki Show. Coming live from Rancho Cucamonga. Just an hour from wherever you are.
Exactamundo, folks.
Yeah.
Exactamundo.
What's up, Janki?
Well, I was just wondering how the afterglow of your birthday worked out yesterday.
Well, I got on the freeway, and I noticed my power steering was going out. My serpentine belt flew off my truck. I pulled over on, got off on the exit on Town Avenue, and I had to call AAA, and luckily, my auto mechanic that I go to, Alan Lee's Automotive, right there on 11th Street in Upland, and they he took it in, and he was still there. I'm glad the doors were still open.
Wow!
So he said check with him around noon. But like I said, we got our Lyft driver that gave us a ride to work this morning, and she's going to give us a ride out to L.A.
She's a pal and a half.
You do your thing, I'll do mine, but we'll both get out there after the show.
Yes.
And you know, we couldn't do this without our sponsors.
No, we could not.
Yes, Pacific Wine Merchants and Cigar Exchange in downtown Upland. And that's right at the Metrolink, correct?
Yes, you can watch the sun slowly set over the IHOP.
You know, you keep mentioning that IHOP. I don't think I'll ever eat there because they're way too expensive.
It might be IHOP now.
Do they give us free birthday?
I told you.
I went to Denny's twice yesterday.
My brother
I remember I did it within 2 hours, and I put a wig on, and the same people were there, and they it was kind of obvious, but they rolled with it anyway because they thought it was funny. I waited from breakfast and then went to dinner. But Pacific Wine Merchants and Cigar Exchange, the finest wines, the finest cigars in downtown Upland. Live music on the weekends, man. Just talk to Greg or Mark or Benny.
Or any of the fine folks who work there.
Yeah. And you can always put, your coins on the railroad tracks, when you hear it coming and make jewelry out of it. That's Pacific Wine Merchants and Cigar Exchange. And, what do you do when you want a New York bagel?
I get on a Learjet and I fly straight to New York.
Oh, yeah, straight to New York, and that would be right here in Rancho Cucamonga.
What? You mean I can eat a New York bagel here?
You can have a New York bagel right here in Rancho Cucamonga on the corner of Archibald and Foothill, right next, north of Four Color Comics. You can see right there. And get your New York bagel because it's made with New York water that's imported from New York.
New York water makes the bread fluff up.
Yes, it does. From New York, baby, yeah.
Home of Charles Bronson.
Oh, boy. And here we are 2 minutes after. We've already covered our sponsors. I've already told you about my car breaking down.
And we only have an hour and 57 minutes.
So that's going to dig a hole in my wallet. But I will get to make it up by going out and sculpting something for a commercial, I guess. Has to do with cereal?
Wow.
I don't know what cereal.
Well,
I don't know if it's them Apple Jacks. What do those kids see in them Apple Jacks?
I always like
them
Apple
Jacks.
Jacks.
They don't taste like apples.
I prefer Captain Crunch.
They just, we like it because we just do. Okay. Yeah, Captain Crunch, it tears the roof of your mouth up, doesn't it?
It's like eating glass.
Yeah, I like eating glass. Oh, hey, our guest today.
We have two.
Two guests today. We're having Perry Lang.
Perry Lang was a great character actor, but more importantly, he became a great director.
Yes.
And we're going to talk to him about all the shows he appeared on. More importantly, he was also one of the guys in the original Alligator.
Oh, yes. Alligator. I love big old alligators. After seeing that movie, the alligators in the gators there when I went to New Orleans were so tiny.
I know.
The little 4 foot, 5 foot cute little alligators you could just have on your lap, take them in, adopt them. Yeah. So who's our second guest?
You don't know who our second guest is?
I didn't check. I got so caught up in my personal problems yesterday.
Oh,
I wasn't paying attention to our show.
Your travails have fallen in the way of the show for the last time, mister. I will tell you.
We had a great day yesterday. Wasn't Danielle awesome?
She was, Danielle Kennedy was amazingly awesome. Great story, start to finish.
Yep. And tomorrow, Friday, what are we going to kill Friday off with?
Friday, we're going to have the great Carlos Velarde and his pal Ivan from Phantom Zone Effects.
All right. Yeah.
Carlos is great. I did their horror show, flat line TV.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and Carlos does special effects.
Excellent. A lot of prosthetic and makeup and making monsters and creatures as well.
You met Carlos. Carlos is the guy who recreates beautifully the Nicholson Batman at conventions.
Oh, yeah.
He did the effects himself on that, actually.
I remember that when we were at, where were we? Monsterpalooza? Son of Monsterpalooza?
Salute.
Yeah. What else, Janki?
So we're going to talk with
oh gosh, we got no coffee today. How are we going to get? How are you going to? I know I can get through. How are you going to make? Wake up.
Not easy, man. Not easy.
Wake up.
What'd you do to us, Dutchie?
The microwave is gone. We got a lot more space here now that he's moved out most of the kitchen. And we'll have to stock up on our little coffee shots. Yeah, as you're yawning right now.
Yeah, boy, oh boy. But yeah, so Per Lang is the director now. We'll talk about his latest film, which will be fun.
Yes.
Who's the second guest?
I don't know. Where? Steve, help us out. Where are you?
Well, we'll talk to Steve about his first film and his latest film, An Interview with God.
Yeah.
This is known in the business as dead air.
Welcome to the Dead Air Show. Waiting for our guest here on the Jeff and Janki Show.
Woohoo! When it's dead air, it's most definitely still the Jeff Sargent Show.
How you doing, Jimmy? You out there out there in the city of Doherty?
Jimmy and Doherty?
Yeah.
I thought you said he was right around the corner from here.
Well, that's at home, but he's at work. He could do everything. Can you imagine he could just control the universe with his cell phone?
No.
And everything here at the station?
Nifty.
That's pretty amazing. I'm going to look up because I'm not getting any. My computer is useless here because it says I'm getting reception here. I'm getting the Wi-Fi here but it's not going on. Now I got an IMDb. You got IMDb up?
Oh yeah, preparing? Sure.
Yeah, I got to get my phone going here. Oh God, what am I going to do? Play a song while I'm trying to? I can't talk and. No, we don't have a second guest. What made you think that?
You said, who's the second guest?
No, you said we have two guests.
Oi.
Oh, boy. Somebody get this guy some coffee. It's just Perry, and he's going to ride us through the whole show.
This will be great.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah. Oh, God.
This is known as dead air.
This is a song called Got No Car because that's what happened to me last night.
I got no car.
to take you up there too, twins, Jimmy.
No! Got no car!
That's making me sick. Can't be no star. I'm just another cheap trick.
Cheap trick? Is this cheap trick?
That's a camera canceled.
Can't be no star. No, 'cause I got no car.
That's what it feels like when you got no car.
True, true, true. Who is this? You good song?
This is by the Cyclones, the same group that makes our theme song.
Wow.
Fabulous Cyclones from Arcadia, California.
I got no chicks. It's hurting real bad. Can't get no girls. I'm just a horny young man. I got no car.
No.
Can't go far.
No!
No help from my dad.
No!
I got no car. 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 Yeah! Come out, man!
Ladies and gentlemen, the fabulous Cyclones. Wow, nice. Wow, our theme song.
Yeah, I got no car, but it will be done by the middle of the day.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. You know what it's like to have your car break down, Pat?
Oh, sadly I do. You remember that one Halloween?
Oh my God, that was straight out of a movie, man. One of them.
My drive shaft blew up, and my tire went shooting off the car.
With the
drive shaft still
the drive
attached.
shaft on the wheel, driving by itself on a stick.
And passed me
It passed you in the rain.
in the rain on Hollywood Boulevard.
What were you dressed as?
Well, believe it or not, because I was introducing the Hollywood horror shorts, so I was dressed normally, but there
Oh,
was.
so you're dressed normally. So that means you were yourself. So you were Bigfoot with clothes on.
Yes,
Bigfoot in a t-shirt.
I went to a spin, and I remember thinking, so this is how I'm going to die.
You still have 3 wheels, man.
Yeah, and I turned into the spin. And I remember a little Thai town. I perfectly put her against the curb. That was terrible. And I sat there all night. The tow truck driver could not believe I parked it like that with a missing tire.
That's almost as bad as mine. I could have blown my car up. I mean, it started up, again after it cooled down. It cooled down pretty quick. My car's overheated a few times. Those Dodge Dakotas make good motors. You could really abuse those things.
When you turn around, you see all the meters in red,
Uh-huh. Yeah, we got 2 minutes. 2 minutes to interview.
This will be delightful.
Yeah.
This will be delightful.
And Jimmy Shaw is controlling the universe, the chaotic universe, with this special device that he holds in his can. Or he could be doing it with his
Wait.
computer.
Whoa.
I bet you he's got a full...
Whoa, the special he holds in his can? What are you talking about?
Wait, did I say can?
You did. You just said...
Whatever his can is. Out there in that special place he's at, he's got access to all this modern computer equipment, right?
Yes.
And he could dial in and push these buttons, man, and make things happen here. That's why there's nobody in that booth right there. Just somebody in spirit.
What a weird day.
Oh, man, is this the longest 2 minutes you ever had, Pat?
Pretty much.
Oh, God, I'm still trying. I'm still trying to get even after one song during the music, still trying to dial it. Then my IMDb just shows up on my phone. Okay.
Oh, I can tell you what we're also doing. I know the tonight at 8 p.m. on chaoticradio.com, the Kind of Gaming Show will be live.
Really? I mean, live people?
Yeah.
Can we bring our tiddlywinks? What kind of games you got? You got Yahtzee? You like playing Yahtzee?
Yahtzee.
How about Trivial Pursuit, Patrick?
And
I like board games.
And Roy and Jimmy in the Monday mornings and Tuesdays are on from 7 to 9 a.m.
That's the same spot as we can. You know, we could show up. We could ambush them when they're not knowing.
Not at 7 to 9 a.m.
We can surprise them with a Kudos breakfast pizza.
You know, when you say this out loud, you got to follow through with it. Good intentions don't count.
Oh, yeah. Good intentions don't count.
The road to hell, ...
All right. Well, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do some research and see if there's a breakfast pizza. Otherwise, we're going to have to bring New York bagels.
Or we could go surprise them on the Tuesday night.
We could surprise them.
Tuesday night show.
Yes, from 7 to 9.
So they did the morning.
No, we could ambush them on a Monday or Tuesday.
Roy and Jimmy do the morning show on Tuesday and then a night show.
Then they're going doing it twice. How do they? Where do they come up? Where do they get the energy, man? And then they do it again.
Not from me, man.
Right here at Chaotic Radio. Oh my God, we got a caller.
Answer the phone.
Oh my gosh, here we go. You wouldn't happen to be Perry Lang, would you?
I'll let you know in a couple hours when I wake up.
Okay. We're still trying to wake up here, man. I'm so glad you called in and saved the show.
The man, the myth, Perry Lang, actor, director, producer, on the line. How's it going, Perry?
I'm good, guys. What are we doing up this early? This is way too early.
You didn't get your call sheet? We just had the call sheets printed up and passed out to everybody.
Damn it, Perry. We've been waiting on the location for an hour.
Yeah, they just pulled us out of Extras Holding right now. We're ready to shoot, man.
Yeah, no, I'm undercaffeinated, but I'm happy to talk to you guys.
Well, we are honored, sir. Let's start. I mean, we were looking over your resume. It's amazing. You worked with Spielberg. You worked with, wow. You worked with Trish Vanderveer. You're in the hearse?
Amazing.
Trish Vanderveer. Man, that's a name I've not heard in generations.
You probably forgot about that one, huh?
The hearse, the scary movie with the hearse that drives over and picks up people.
Yeah, that was, it had Donald Petrie was in it.
Who also became a director. I interviewed Donald in my last book.
Yeah, he's a really terrific guy, Donald.
Wow, but was the hearse so bad that both of you became directors?
It was funny because before I directed anything, I sort of observed on the show called The Equalizer in New York.
Wow.
And Don was, directing at the time, and he helped me so much. Really, it was spectacular. He gave me advice that I use to this very day. He was really very instructive there.
Really?
Yeah, and I was sort of a can I say asshole?
Yes, you may.
When I was a kid actor, I was a kid asshole, and it was really and somehow he forgave that and helped me out.
That's amazing. I mean, when you look at the old TV series, how was Edward? How was the Equalizer himself?
Oh, he was terrific. He was, he was pretty sort of old then, and he had an incredible career, Breaker Morant, and
the Wicker Man, the original Wicker Man with Christopher Lee.
Yeah, he was a really terrific guy, and he really, I think, didn't want to be working as hard as he was. He just he needed the money or something, or probably wanted to work, but I don't know what British television is like, but American television in those days too, it was really long hours.
Wow.
And he was everything. So it was 12, 14 hours a day, and he was not a young guy. And New York City was not an easy place to be in production.
Remember, they had to shut the show down because he had a heart attack during the run of the series.
Oh, that's right. I remember that. I don't know if I was around then, but I acted in an episode once, and then this is how long ago it was when I acted in an episode that I was the bad guy in the episode. You can see how menacing I am. I'm just like a white kid with a like, hi, how are you? It was me as the bad guy, and my partner as a bad guy was Brad Whitford. So
Bradley Whitford from The West Wing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, two of us, and it was sort of funny to see him be the bad guy and Get Out, but the two of us were tough teenagers, and that was sort of sad that's all that we were bad guys. Yeah.
Oh my God, your wife is in RoboCop.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know that's random, but wow.
We love RoboCop.
But Paul Verhoeven's RoboCop is amazing.
Yeah. Although don't tell her this, because but I never saw RoboCop.
You've never seen RoboCop? Why not?
Well, okay. I went to the premiere of RoboCop, and my date, which was not my wife at the time, but my wife was in the auditorium when this happened. So I go to the premiere, which is at the Academy, and it's on Wilshire, and we sit like fourth row center. And my date, the first, the big murder when Robo gets killed, she breaks out and screams and starts crying, and I have to leave with her. And I'm sure we disrupted the entire screening, but my wife somewhere in that frame.
Wow!
That's all I saw of RoboCop. But yeah, I know it's crazy.
That's funny. Well, now you were an actor for a long while. What made you go to directing?
I guess I could make a joke, but I really felt like I wanted to grow up a little bit. I started I think acting's a great, in an honorable profession, but sort of when you start young, and I was a knothead when I was young, and they just sort of point you here and direct you here, and get into makeup, get your clothes on. I just felt like that I wanted to do something else. Actually, I really wanted to write, and I've been writing since I was 20-something, and so the writing got me into directing. I actually thought, well, I didn't know if I could direct, but I was certainly inspired by Sam Fuller and Steven Spielberg, and
wow,
some of the guys that I worked with early on.
Just Big Red One. I mean, if you're going to start out, Spielberg and Sam Fuller seem to be the way to go.
In the same year, I did that. really. That was great, and to do both those movies with Bobby DeCicco was spectacular as well.
Yeah, he's in both films with you, and Big Red 1, I think, was one of Mark Hamill's first non-Star Wars roles. You know?
Yeah, it was after Star Wars, but it was he was already, everyone thought of him as Luke Skywalker, and he was really, I think, sort of shell-shocked at that point by everything, and which he was able to settle into. But how do you get used to that sort of fame and fortune, really?
Yeah. I mean, wow. Because you and Bobby, you guys did that in 1941 together, but Hamill and you were thrown together. I mean, you're in this unit in this movie. Where did you shoot Big Red 1?
We shot it in Israel. And,
oh my God, that's far away.
I'm a teenager and never been, like anywhere, and we were all in Israel. I was sort of the youngest of all those guys, and I loved talking and spending time with Lee Marvin, who continued to be a friend until he died, and his wife just died, DeCicco and I would get there very early in the morning to see Lee, because Lee would get there, downstairs waiting for the car in the morning, half an hour early. And so it was just DeCicco and I sitting there, and DeCicco says to me, how you doing? I go, I don't know, how you doing? And he said, look, I just got a part in Steven Spielberg's new movie. And wow, that is, Bobby, that's incredible. He goes, yeah. He goes, I've never read the script, but I named Dennis DeSoto. And I go, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And at lunch that day, I toasted DeCicco and I said, here's to Bobby, who's playing Dennis DeSoto. I remembered the name in Steven Spielberg's new movie, and everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, that's great, that's amazing!" And cut to 6 months later, I'm auditioning for 1941.
All right.
And there's Steven, and at one of the I auditioned six times. And at one of the auditions, Spielberg had DeCicco hidden in a room, and DeCicco comes out, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's great, we hug, and suddenly Steven says to me, look, here's the story. I think you're the best actor I've auditioned for the part, and he auditioned everyone, including Mark Hamill, all these other
Wow.
part, but he said, look, you can't dance. You can't dance at all. I mean, which was, a fair characterization of what I tried to do. But he said, what I'm thinking of doing is giving DeCicco's part to you and this part to DeCicco. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah, well, give me a moment to think about it. I'll call you tomorrow. And John Milius was standing there, the great John Milius, who was the producer on the film. And I had done this film, Big Wednesday, with Milius.
Oh, that's right. You tall kid.
Yeah, exactly. And Milius said, Stephen, make a decision. and John, he just leaned into Stephen. And Stephen said, John, give me a moment. I really need to think about this. He goes, Stephen, make a decision. Can I swear on this show?
Yeah, please.
Okay. And Milius said, Stephen, make a fucking decision.
Wow. Wow. An executive decision.
and Spielberg said, okay, you have the part. Which was funny because now I was playing this part, Dennis DeSoto, that DeCicco had gotten. DeCicco played Wally, and I played Dennis DeSoto. So the character that I toasted 6 months earlier in a field like an empty field in Israel with a lunch table. I now had that part, so it was a very funny moment in my life, anyways. And the Chico is actually in this new movie I have coming out. So
no, this is An Interview with God, your latest film.
Yeah, and I directed it. It's in New York City, and there was a part that sort of reoccurred throughout the movie, and I wanted the Chico to play it, and he did. So that was just cool. And everybody loved him. Everybody, he's just the guy is just magic on screen, I think.
Wow, that's kind of cool. I mean, that you guys started out together. Well, and talk to us. What's the plot? What is the story of it? Give us the log line in The Interview with God.
Okay, so it's a journalist who comes back from Afghanistan, and his whole life is going sideways. His marriage, his work life. He's just sort of suffering with a form of PTSD, and at work they tell him to take some time off. He doesn't. He takes an interview with sort of a nut job who says he's God, and he meets with this guy in a series of 3 interviews, and you'll have to see, but it looks like the crazy guy's God.
Wow, interesting, John.
David Strathairn plays God, the God character,
wow.
and
LA Confidential.
Yeah, David is unbelievable in this movie, and Brenton Thwaites is just great. He's really the central figure, and Brenton was not only a joy to work with, but really, he's just a movie star. He's so talented and just prepared and charismatic on screen. It's quite good. You can see the trailer. It's online, aninterviewwithgod.com, and it is really a fun experience. We shot it in New York City, and it's got a lot of heart, this movie, I think.
Well, I just love that you have a newcomer facing off with Straight Heron, because, again, Straight Heron's in everything. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. He's so, you just love the guy. He's been a friend of mine for a long time. In fact, he's my son's godfather. So
wow.
Yeah.
No.
Go ahead.
No. Is it weird when you're in the director mode? Is it weird that you have to take to your son's godfather, his Uncle David, and tell him what to do? Was that strange? There was, and I thought, David and I had acted together. We were 2 of the 8 men in 8 Men Out, and I've known him for a long time, and I thought, this could get horrible. This could be fucked up. But it was, great from the very get-go, and just stayed great through the whole experience. And it's you just sort of fall into these roles, but I part of it for me was just, and this is what I never realized directing would be until you do it, is you get to sit there, you have the best seat in the house, and you get to watch actors like David Strathairn and Brenton Thwaites go at it, and really. It's, as an actor, you give blood, and it's just a really hard job. People would go, well, how do you work, all those long hours as a director? And it's like, that is nothing compared to being an actor. An actor really has to, slice his liver up and serve it. It's just, it's hard work, but to get there and sit right by the camera and watch these guys have these spectacular scenes together. I mean, that was worth everything. Wow. And was it a long shoot? Since you mentioned you were in New York, that's kind of amazing.
Yeah, no, it was a very quick shoot. It was 15 days.
Wow.
So yeah, it went. We rehearsed a little bit beforehand, but it really went quickly.
Interesting. And it came out, so is it regional? Because it says it came out May 29th?
No, it's out August 20th. It's 20th, 21st, and 22nd. And it's a Fathom release. So it's 700 theaters for those 3 days.
Wow.
And you go to the website, put in your zip code, and it'll tell you the theater is close to you that it's playing, and it's really it's great that a movie like this gets this sort of big release. So I'm very proud of the movie and proud of the sentiment in the movie, which is I won't give it away, but really it's quite meaningful, I think, and it's. Sort of deals with free will and some just not like woo God stuff. It's really just practical, wonderful, human advice, and not anything that is sort of God is telling you what to do.
Interesting. No, but to me that's interesting because it sounds like you've taken an interesting tact on the movie as well,
Well, it was a good script, and it was fun to put it in New York City, and it was sort of had been a rural or sort of suburban story, and to put it in New York City made sense, and it changed in a lot of ways, and these actors changed in a lot of ways. Their take on it was really specific and really creative, and it's you don't see these. I mean, and again, I didn't write it, so I can say this: you don't see meaty scenes like this between two terrific actors. All the time. It's not, a heist movie where two people share two quippy lines and then they grab the jewels. This is really two actors leaning into some really interesting and provocative things and sort of well thought out by these two guys.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
And go on.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I guess to me, Perry, one of the interesting things is that you've jumped from actor to director, and not too many people can do that successfully.
I think there are some. Look at Mike Nichols. I mean, he was the best. So there are people that have done it much better, I think. But I really. I love actors, and that is still the process that inspires me and thrills me the most. It's great to work with camera and costume design and the art department, but when it gets down to it, that process of creating a scene with just actors and a camera, that's the really important, great stuff. That's the meaty stuff, and that's the stuff that you care about when people walk away from a movie. You don't go, God, that set was the most amazing thing. You really think about the performances, and so it's the script and the actors, and sometimes you just have to get the fuck out of the way.
Wow.
So they can have the marriage that was meant to be. And sometimes you help the process when you can. So that's that job, but I love writing as well. So, but I didn't write this one.
You did a movie not a lot of people know about, but the movie I always thought had a lot of inspiration for the Terminator. Nick Castle's Tag the Assassination Game.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, That was a long time ago. Yeah.
But what's interesting about the movie is Cameron uses the scene where the guy is coming, the scene in the Terminator where he's coming to kill Linda Hamilton is taken shot for shot from Your Tag, where she bends down to pick up something off the floor and misses being killed.
Oh, that's interesting. And wait, isn't Linda Hamilton in Tag?
Not only is Linda Hamilton the Tag, I want to believe that Michael Biehn is as well. Hold on, let me look. But you were directed by Nick Castle, who I interviewed. He's the original Michael Myers from Halloween.
Oh, that's interesting. You know, and I forgot that Michael Biehn was in it because Michael Biehn and I did a police story when we were teenagers. And then we also did this movie, Zuma Beach.
Wow, do you know who wrote Zuma Beach, right?
No, who wrote Zuma Beach?
John Carpenter.
What?
Yeah, that was one of Carpenter's first scripts, Zuma Beach.
That is outrageous. Oh, my God, that's so funny. And you know who...
Suzanne Summers and PJ Souls. I thought PJ Souls, who's in Halloween, is in it with you too, I believe, right?
Yeah, PJ and I became really good friends on that movie and stayed good friends. And she's wonderful. That movie has that TV movie really has some weird surprises. Tim Hutton, it was his first job. He had one line in it.
Wow.
The junior lifeguard, Brian Grazier. It was his first producing job ever.
Brian Grazier produced it?
Yeah, he was like an associate producer on it, and yeah, he was this. You know, he was like, "Hey, hi guys." You know, he was just this. Again, a kid, and
wow.
And I remember. He got access to a Jeep, and in between takes or something, we drove out in a Jeep, and we had a bunch of people with us, and Brian was driving, and he hit a bump somewhere, and one of the actresses kind of jumped out of her seat. You know, nobody wore seatbelts, and she hit her head.
Oh no.
On the roll bar, right? And this big sort of goose egg started climbing out of her forehead.
Oh no, man!
She was an actress, and she had to work that day. And Brian lost his shit completely. He was, oh my God! Oh, you know, he's. It was my first directing, producing job ever, and I've ruined the actress, and it's growing out of her forehead like a unicorn.
Just like a cartoon hitting the head, right, with a bump coming out.
Right, yeah, and we're all just sort of standing there, wide-eyed, watching this goose egg grow.
Was that Kimberly Beck or Tanya?
Oh, probably was one of those two, right? I don't remember, but I remember both those women, very well.
Tanya Roberts at the height of her powers. I mean, Kimberly Beck is in my last book, and she's still stunning.
Is she?
Oh my God, yeah.
Haven't heard from her in so many years. That's great.
Yeah, she's married to the guy who did the animated film Monster House.
Oh, interesting! Wow.
And they used her name. They used her name and her kid's name. They used her son's name and her son's dog's name for the strippers' kids and dog in Independence Day. They did because she knew the guys running Independence Day, so they used her son's name Boomer and the dog's name for the Roland Emmerich movie Independence Day.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
How do you find this shit out?
I don't know. I just when I interviewed her, I remember that was one of her cooler stories. She was also she told me a great story. She did a Corey Feldman Friday the 13th movie. And she said, even though she was this young actress in this small town on Christmas and on Halloween, Corey Feldman came to our hotel room because his parents didn't bother taking him out for Halloween. And he begged her to take him trick-or-treating, and she did.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that is sweet.
Isn't it? And then she goes, she vowed right that moment, she said, when I have kids, they're never going to have to beg strangers to take them trick-or-treating. She was so enraged that they wouldn't, the parents were so uncaring of the kid, they wouldn't even take him trick-or-treating.
Oh, my God. That is a wonderful story. That would make a little film.
Wouldn't it? I was just thinking that. I mean, wouldn't it? Because she tells the story, and whatever her plans were that night, she said she changed them to take him trick-or-treating into this small town, because he came to her hotel room from his hotel room. And I mean, to me, I always think of that story when I think of her, because it goes to character, you know?
Yeah.
And I interviewed Feldman, and I brought that up, and he totally confirmed it, and he was really grateful to this day for what she did, you know?
Wow.
Oh, that's great. I remember her as being, really sweet and beautiful, but I think that was the last time I ever saw her was on that movie.
On Zuma Beach, which you had no idea was written by the great John Carpenter.
Possible. How come we didn't know that? I guess he wasn't John Carpenter then.
He was. He became John Carpenter that year. I think Zuma ran in 79, but it's one of the legendary early scripts of John Carpenter.
I think maybe PJ had done Halloween before, and then it just hadn't come out yet.
And with Nick Castle, Nick Castle co-created Escape from New York. He co-wrote Escape from New York. Now, because when you worked with him, on Tag, he was already Michael Myers. You know what I mean?
I didn't know that.
And he's playing Michael Myers in the new Halloween, right, with Jamie Lee Curtis?
No, really?
Yes. And when the assassination game, Tag, that scene, they do that whole scene from the dance club, but they do it before Terminator, where Linda Hamilton drops something, she bends down and misses being killed.
That's funny. I don't know if this is sort of lame to say, but I don't know if I actually saw Tag. I don't know if I saw the movie, but I did hear at some point that it was Forrest Whitaker's first job.
Yeah, he plays the bodyguard.
Wow.
Yeah, that would have been before Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Wow. Yeah,
which was such a great movie. That movie. Wow.
Of your guest shots as an actor, do you have any you're really proud of? Because you were admitting you were a little punk on Equalizer with Edward Woodward.
I did a lot of those guest shots. I did a MASH.
Wow.
That was one that I
that was
really,
in '82.
That was one of the last MASHes, right?
Yeah. I think it.
Yeah. I think it was the year 10 or something, because like clockwork, I get a check for $50, every 3 months.
Wow.
And that's sort of amazing. But that was sort of special. And when you did guest star parts in those days, I don't think it's the same today, but in those days, you'd show up and you'd literally go to rehearsal and you'd talk to the AD and, the cast wouldn't even say hi to you.
Wow.
People were like, you'd be hugging somebody that was, your mother or whatever, and you hadn't even met them. And, I think it was sort of, it was a less, I don't know, genteel time in a certain way. But when you went to MASH, it was amazing. Everybody was so friendly. I remember sitting there and expecting to be alone the way you always are on as a guest star. You're the outsider, and I go, oh wow, there's Alan Alda. Oh, well, he's walking sort of close to me. That's fun. And he walks right up to me, and I'm thinking, this is weird. And he said, "Hi, I'm Alan Alda. Welcome to MASH." Wow, you're kidding me. Did you just, that's like, I'm looking over my shoulder thinking, is somebody filming this? Because this is just, and he was just a genuinely nice guy. In fact, he was so nice that, we were talking about, directing the woman who directed that episode. I can't remember. But she was very inexperienced and a nice woman, but she had been an actress too. I remember, and she died in a plane crash. She was a pilot.
Really? Oh my God! It wasn't. No, it wouldn't have been Susan Oliver. Now I'm wondering who directed your episode.
I think it was Susan Oliver.
Wow.
Anyways, so she was trying to figure out the coverage. She asked me to stay later, which is cool. I'm happy to do it. It was a scene of me in a bed because I was a dying soldier, and the nurse was sitting talking to me, and so she just was trying to figure out how to shoot her coverage of the scene, and I look over, and across this, the tent set of the show was Alan Alda just standing there watching, and just kind of respectfully staying out of her eye line. But then finally she said, Alan, do you have any, ideas? Because she was sort of couldn't figure it out. It's just the math of the coverage. And
oh my God, you're right. It was Susan Oliver. She directed your episode.
Yeah. Oh,
she was good.
She was very sweet. I remember that.
She was the first Green Orion slave girl in Star Trek. She starred in the original pilot for Star Trek.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, she was, a really nice woman, and you early on you get that way as a director. There's coverage that you can't quite figure out. And Alan walked over and said, "Oh yeah, well usually what we do in these situations is we're here and then we're here and then we're here, and sort of it's easy because of this and that." And he just smiled at everybody and then went home. But he stayed after. Here's this guy. It's 10 years into the series.
Wow.
10 years, and he's standing there in his clothes, ready to go home, and hung out to help her out. So, yeah, and that was terrific. And also, the actress that I did the scene with had been an extra on the show for the 10 years that they had done that.
Wow!
Wow!
That's a long time.
She had been an extra. So every day for 10 years, she would show up, and once in a while they'd give her a line or a special bit to do. But basically, she was an extra. And in this show, she was the main, guest star in the show, and that was, that was really. I mean, how many TV shows would do that? Would give an extra a part, let alone a meaningful part.
That's touching. I mean, because not only that, you're working with one of the first woman directors on TV before that was a thing,
Right. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. And you know what? I think she would have gone on to do a lot more had she not, obviously died in she was, and she was a pilot. So.
Wow. And I mean, I'm just, looking over your filmography as an actor, it's amazing how much ground you covered. I mean, Sean Cunningham, we just talked about the guys you worked with both the guys from the original Halloween, Nick Castle on Tag and John Carpenter on Zuma Beach. And then you look at you worked on Spring Break, which was directed and produced by Sean Cunningham, who did the whole Friday the 13th franchise.
Yeah, Sean was a nut.
Tell us more. You can't just stop there. We need a full-on story.
No, he had produced the movie himself. So Spring Break. So I think he was paying. He made all this money on Friday the 13th, or I think that was it. And so I think he funded the movie himself. He later sold it to Columbia, but so every facet of the production was coming out of his pocket. So
wow.
He, understandably a little nervous and brave to do it.
Yeah, his own money,
Pardon me?
Yeah, his own money. He put his own money on the table,
Yeah, and one day I had to fly back. It was my day off, but we shot all night on Friday night, and I flew to LA to test for some show or something, and then flew back, in time for work, and on Sunday night. So I was gone from the location for, I don't know, 24 hours or something, but it was my day off. So, you can do obviously what you want on your day off. And I flew to LA from Fort Lauderdale. And I think we were getting $50 a day per diem then. And, yeah, I know. It's a huge amount. And I noticed that I was short $50 in my per diem envelope. And I said, what's the deal? She was, well, you were gone, and I said, well, I was gone, but what do you do on your day off? You go away, right? I could have been in Miami. You wouldn't have shorted me the $50. And no, you have to talk to Sean. And so I mentioned it to Sean, and he said, yeah, well, you went away. You left. And I said, well, it was my day off, Sean. And he's like, no, sorry, you left. That's it. No, that's it. And finally, we were shooting a shot, and he goes, okay, and action. And I said, Sean, I want my $50. And the camera's rolling. And literally you can see in that take, in the film, the actual film, in my pocket of my shirt, the $50.
Wow. And there was Jeff Garland of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and of course the Goldbergs was an extra in it.
And I remember him really clearly because he showed up and he did the like the belly flop contest or something.
Right.
It's very funny because I have a memory like a sieve, but I do remember this kid, and it's funny when David Nell, who was in the movie as well, he did his. This is entrepreneurial, I think, and amazing. He did his own DVD commentary to the movie and asked me to do it with him. And we sat down together. He bought a tape recorder, and we did the DVD commentary that he produced himself. And at some point, he called up Jeff Garland, and we talked. The three of us talked on the DVD commentary. But I mean, come on, that is amazing. When you, an actor, produce your own DVD commentary to a movie that doesn't have a DVD commentary, and then you sell it on the internet, you got to give that person, some props.
That's pretty damn good. Yeah. I mean, but looking over your stuff, you worked with so many people. Let's talk about Spielberg, because you worked with Sam Fuller on one of his last movies. And I'm a huge Fuller fan. I love Shock Corridor. I thought White Dog was great. You know what I mean? What was Fuller like? Talk to us.
Oh, Sam was amazing. I'm sitting talking to you from. I built an office in the backyard of my house. So out back, I have this. It's this office I built, and I call it the Shack because Sam called his office the Shack.
Wow.
And there's one photo of one person. I mean, photos of my kids or wife or anybody in here, but there's a photo of Sam Fuller, and I can send you that. It's Sam, directing the scene in the Big Red One where I go and look in this tank, and we were burning tires that day, and Sam is holding a German Luger to give cues with. He held this gun all the time. He never said action. He never said cut. He always said, "Okay, lad, you ready? All right. Okay, here we go." And he goes, "Okay, go." And and literally, and then he would turn to the operator who was Adam. Oh gosh, great. He shot the Terminator too.
Adam Greenberg.
Adam Greenberg.
Adam Greenberg shot Big Red One as well.
He shot the Big Red One, and Adam Greenberg could barely speak English when we did the Big Red One, and he's great. And I did another really bad movie with him years later. But the Big Red
Which one? Which one did you shoot with him later?
No, there's no one.
I'm going to find it. You go on.
It's a horrible movie, but Sam would go, okay, Adam, we're over here. All right, down here, and Adam would go, yes, okay, Mr. Fuller, I think no light. I think no light, Mr. Fuller. I mean, literally, you see and Adam. I mean, to this day, speaks perfect English. It's amazing, but he had never. I mean, he was Israeli, and he was still living in Israel, and he leaves Israel. I think probably because the Big Red One was a recognizable movie, and he made a career in Hollywood and became a huge cinematographer.
Amazing.
Doing the first Terminator movie helped, I'm sure. But a terrific guy, and he was talking about, was the first one to tell me that idea, really about on this horrible movie we were on. We were standing in lunch line, and I turned to him and I said, it's like 3 days into production, and I said, Adam, he goes, yeah. He goes, is this movie gonna be any good? He goes, oh no, this is horrible. And I said, yeah, I sort of figured. And
he just looked at you and said, "This movie's going to be horrible."
Yeah. I mean, but sort of in the tone of, what are we having for lunch today?
Right.
It's just, it's a job, and so I said, the director, right? He's horrible. And he goes, no, it doesn't. The director, it doesn't really matter. And I said, I go. What do you mean? He goes. It's the script and the actors. Script and the actors. He goes. The director, he can play a part, but it's really the script and the actors. And that was really a light bulb went off, in my little tiny head. And that was but that was, even jobs where you go, the movie's going to be horrible. There's something that you like about it. There's something that makes the experience memorable, and to work with Adam again was really that.
That horrible movie you did with him, the second one that was horrible, was Jocks, and you worked with Christopher Lee. Talk about that. Christopher Lee was the president of the college,
right? But Chris Lee was also in 1941.
Oh my God, you're right. I'd forgotten that.
And okay, here's the other crazy thing. One of the actors in it was Tom Shadyac.
Yeah, I was about to say, who went on to do The Nutty Professor with Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, but Ace Ventura, Liar Liar. I mean, he's one of the great comedic directors, I think, and just an amazing guy.
Wow.
He really. I know that he did the documentary. He sort of dropped out of everything and is following a more spiritual path, which makes perfect sense because he's too good for, a lot of the show business craziness. And I was also in Cambodia on vacation with my wife. We went to Siem Reap and we visited a landmine museum in Cambodia, and we're the middle of nowhere in Cambodia, and it turns out there's an American guy running the landmine museum, and he says, what do you do? And I said, well, I work as a director. And he goes, that's funny because a director paid for this. He bought this whole museum.
Shadyac did?
And Shadyac had written one check for the whole museum. And he just met this guy, this American guy, and he said, here's how much you need. Great. There you go.
Wow. So he paid for the museum to keep it open because it was important.
There really was no museum. He heard this American guy speak about landmines in Cambodia, and ended up just saying, okay, that sounds like a good cause. Here's $250,000. Go make yourself a museum.
Wow.
And it's a very important museum that's open to this very day, and they do a lot of great work with children and landmine victims.
Wow!
Wow! And what's interesting as well is that when you did the movie, when you did this movie, you also worked with Shaft. You want to talk about Richard Roundtree and R.J. Armstrong from Predator?
Oh yeah. Those guys, I remember working with both of them, and they were both nice guys, pros. But I think we all sort of we're all pretty aware that this was
a cash run.
Yeah.
So it was a cash run for everybody.
Yeah, and but working in Vegas and it, but like there were a lot of the cast were terrific guys, great guys, and I don't know. Oh, you know what? There's what's her name? Oh,
yes, Mariska Hargitay from Law and Order. I was going to ask you about her.
Right. And here's one of the nicest things I could say about anybody, because she is this terrific, really wonderful, nice woman. I mean, I knew her a little bit after that, but certainly not in those. I haven't seen her in many years, but what's amazing about Mariska Hargitay is that she was sort of like hired because she was gorgeous, and she was, I thought not a great actress at the time, but she became this amazing. I mean, I've watched her, over the years on Law and Order, and she's great. I mean, she's just great. And here's a person that went from having a career because she was, just gorgeous, to having a career because she's, a really, really talented actor, and it's sort of that's a really hard thing. I don't think you see that very often, where you see somebody kind of get into it for one reason, and their craft improves, and I think that she's, God knows, she's had her time in front of the camera, but she hung in there, and whereas, most people haven't.
And Jocks is no longer on her resume, but still.
No, it really shouldn't be on anybody. Yeah, that movie is miserable.
What about Roundtree? Did you like Richard Roundtree?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have much to do with him, but he was terrific, really nice guy, and Shaft. I think we're, being a knucklehead actor, I was like, hey, how about Shaft? And he's like, shut up, get out of here.
Yeah, you don't have the right to mention Shaft in my presence.
Right. How dare you mention Shaft? No, I mean, he was really. I think he was really nice, and but again, a bunch of really, the actors were terrific. Not a good script.
Not a good script.
What I love is that you're looking on your acting work from the position of a director, and I can hear you breaking it down in your head as you speak.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just that you that was a long time ago, and if you don't have perspective after that many years, then you've done too many drugs, I think.
But when you were on the set of 1941, this interests me because I did a book on a Spielberg franchise, and it interests me because you were on what is considered his first misstep, but I still think there's amazing, amazing stuff in 1941. I mean, Toshiro Mifune, Christopher Lee, Ned Beatty, Lorraine Gary, and the dance numbers, and the two Bobs worked on it, Zemeckis and Gale. Yeah. Tell us about that. What was it like to be a fly on the wall of this mega production?
Well, it was great. I mean, I worked on it for 7 months, and Zemeckis had me audition again, weirdly, for the part that Chico got in I Want to Hold Your Hand. So Zemeckis and Gale helped me, got me in with Spielberg, and so that was that association early on, and then just again hanging out on that set. I had when I was 15, I saw the National Lampoon Review, which was basically the cast of Saturday Night Live before they became Saturday Night Live. They did this review, and I remember so clearly at 15 seeing John Belushi and going, that's what I want to do, and 4 years later making a movie with him, and that was really spectacular. And we had about, and somewhere in there, we had about 5 weeks of nights where the entire cast was sort of assembled on this Hollywood Boulevard set on the back lot of what is now Warner Brothers. It used to be the Burbank Studios. And so everybody was, the entire cast was there, and Steven didn't want to make a decision what he was going to shoot exactly that night. So everybody was just there. 5 weeks of nights. You'd show up, around sunset, and you'd spend the whole night. And I know just by observing that a lot of drugs were consumed, and during that period, which is sort of not anything that happens today on a movie, but it was a different time.
Yeah,
and,
different times. That's what everybody was doing back then.
Yeah, and it was so you could. There was John Belushi every night just hanging out. Who knew? So I would, I went up to, multiple times. But one-on-one, he was very nice. If we got around a crowd of people, he would just tease me relentlessly. And, but one-on-one, I would walk up and we like to do Brando imitations together. So I would do that with him, Mickey Rourke was there. He had one line in the movie. And just this huge cast of people, trying to get them through hair and makeup alone. There was 100 extras, 200 extras. There were more arc lights than had ever been used in any Hollywood set ever.
Wow.
And so, nowadays you don't use arc lights, and an arc light, for people that don't know, there's actually this burning piece of carbon which causes the light, and you need one electrician designated to every single lamp. And so there were 100 lamps, and Billy Fraker was the DP.
Wow,
and
William
So
Fraker.
it lit up like daylight.
Yeah,
with those arc lights.
Yeah, and so 100 arcs really lit the place up, and they were all on top of the buildings. And when you'd come back for lunch, Doug
Trumbull? Slocum? Was it Slocum? Douglas Slocum or Trumbull?
No, it was this was the gaffer. He would the gaffer would get on his megahorn and megaphone and say, "Gentlemen, light your arcs."
Wow.
And they would all strike their arcs, and I got to say that once. He let me,
wow, how cool.
Light your arcs. And it would just you'd hear these things popping and coming on, and it was really such an amazing thing. I shot a lot of 8mm footage on that, and Spielberg came to me one day and he said, "I see you're shooting a lot of 8mm." I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'd love to see it, but here, why don't you take my camera, my 8mm camera, and I'll give you all the film you want to shoot, and I'll pay for developing, and the two of us will watch this 8mm
Oh,
footage
how
together."
cool is
Holy
that?
crap.
Damn, I thought he was going to slap it out of your hand.
Yeah, I thought he was going to tell you, what are you doing,
No, that was great. And so I shot. I used his camera. Mine, my camera, it was sort of, I think I had a light leak or something. It was not doing great. And, but I used his camera. I shot. And I kept saying, "Stephen, we should look at this." But, he's busy. And, okay, yeah, we will. And the first time I saw that footage was watching the DVD extras. It said "Home Movies," directed by Steven Spielberg.
How cool is that? Oh,
all this 8mm footage. Of course, I was credited nowhere.
and you're the one doing it.
Well, and who remembers? I don't remember. I know I shot a lot of it, but I don't know if I shot all of it. I think I'm in some of it, so I couldn't have shot all of it, And but Steven's in a lot of it, and we know he wasn't shooting that. So
right.
Did you tell us?
Hang on, let me finish. Go on, Perry.
Well, no, it's just that. But Steven was amazing, and he was really, just such an easy guy to talk to. Here I was 19, he was 30 or 31,
right.
And so he was young, and he, and I just would talked to him all the time, and he seemed to just have a lot of patience for somebody that like me that was a knothead. And I remember there's these girls. They were twins, and they were extras. And I started writing dialogue for them, and I said to Stephen, look, listen to this. And I brought the girls over, and they did the dialogue, and for Stephen, and he goes, okay, great, let's use it. And so not only did they get these. Now suddenly they were actors; they weren't just extras, and they played my girlfriends in the movie, and their dialogues in the movie, and it was of course stupid dialogue that I had written, and but that was sort of Stephen was open to any stupid idea, and but his cut of the movie I think was not as good as it could have been, but Bob Gale came in and recut the movie, I think for a television thing or something, but the cut of the movie that exists now was not the original cut of the movie, and it's about 18 minutes longer, and it's really good. I think they shaved off too much to get it into theaters for Christmas, and then when they expanded it by a little, the same way they did with the Big Red One, they expanded it by a little, and it really made sense. It's just at the time it's hard to have perspective, but
it is amazing. I mean, because Sam Fuller was on that as well.
Yeah, well, Sam, Stephen was a huge Sam Fuller fan, and then since Bobby and I were in that, and he says something about go to the Big Red One or some reference to the Big Red One, and that was great. He had his cigar, and Sam was a character, and and that I forgot about that. I forgot that Sam was in the movie too. That is amazing. His daughter just made a documentary about him that's really, really good, and it's a bunch of us reading parts of his memoir, but also footage that Sam shot during World War II that nobody had ever seen before. Spectacular footage, and it's Wim Wenders and William Friedkin and Mark Hamill and Bobby Carradine, Bobby DeCicco.
Wow.
I don't know if Bobby's in it, but Bobby DeCicco, but Kelly Ward is in it, and it's really a great piece and a love letter to her father.
Wow. Yeah, I met her. She ran a candle shop in the Valley.
Yes, exactly, and she did Glassworks. Yeah.
Yes. Wow,
Samantha.
Yes, Samantha, very good. Samantha Fuller, which is a great way of doing your dad's name as a daughter. I mean,
go on. Samantha's daughter's name is Samira, so it's Sam, Samantha, and Samira.
Wow, so they kept it alive. So there's a Sam Fuller in the family. Did you know it was going to be a great film when you made it, Big Red One?
It was a great experience. I think at that time I was sort of so unable to see the big picture. It's not that I didn't think it was going to be a great movie. I just didn't know. I thought early on when I looked at the movie, I thought it seemed like a throwback to older World War II movies, right. And I didn't understand the power of Lee Marvin. I sort of thought that he was, I think he's just like James Coburn or some other, kind of more show-busy actor. But Lee had a depth and a soul that was unlike any actor I've ever known, and it wasn't until later that I really began to appreciate his gravitas and his real footprint of being, one of the greats. I mean, he was really that, and it was. I mean, Lee and I had if you have a moment, I'll tell you the moment where Lee and I ended up bonding for the first time in a really sort of like a car wreck. But I'm shooting a scene, and before we shoot the scene, I'm rehearsing, and I walk up, nothing but a bunch of dead crowd, Sarge, and I wave, and in the rehearsal I use my arms to when I say the lines, and Lee says, "What is that?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "What are you doing with your arms? Why are you moving your arms like that?" And I said, and this is Lee Marvin, and I said, "Fuck you. If you want to talk to me through the director," and yeah, that was just, and all the guys in the movie sort of took a step back, and I was just a knothead. I was just a 19-year-old idiot.
But you're honest enough to admit it. You, as a director, you now see what he was doing. But as a person, you're honest enough to tell this great story, which is interesting. But it was, I think Sam, who's, had been through World War II and seen everything. I mean, he was a crime reporter when he was 13. Even Sam was like a little shocked by that. And so we did the scene, and it was very quiet, and I just put myself in this ostracized, hinterland of, humanity. And I was I remember sitting leaning against a truck tire in the dirt in Israel, it's 300 degrees out, and going, my life's over. That's okay. That's fine. I'll, go into construction or something. And I'm sitting there, and I hear this voice, which is, iconic, "So where are you from?" Wow.
And Lee sat down next to me in the dirt, and we talked, and that was it. He was a friend until he died, and when we finished the movie, he sent DeChico and I a plane ticket to go visit him in Arizona, and every time he came to New York or LA, wherever I was, they would call, and and I he was really an important part of my life. And it started with that moment of me telling him to fuck off, which was, clearly a mistake.
But you're cool enough to tell this story and admit it, which is, to me, that makes my admiration of you even greater, Perry, that it's a learning moment that led to a lifelong friendship,
Well, yeah. I mean, it was sort of stepping off a cliff, but that was okay. But he, and it wouldn't have happened with a lesser person. Lee was really the real deal, and had he, not had the life he had, and being who he was, it was just that weird combination of him having been a Marine and then an actor and this really well-read, articulate guy. He was so again, it's somebody that won't,
Wow. But that's amazing to me. You're hanging with Lee Marvin, and you were honestly mad at Lee Marvin for,
Yeah. He was something.
Wow. All right, Perry, I got to ask, since we're covering your acting work, you were in, again, as you know, I'm working on an article on it, but you're in the amazing, quirky, wonderful Alligator. You want to talk about that? Script by John Sayles, Robert Forster starring, Robin Riker as the female lead.
I remember when I was in high school, at Chino High School, and we went, I think Prado Dam, they were filming that.
Wow.
I think they were filming. I remember some alligator movie being filmed there.
Do you remember that?
You know, I worked on a set, and then I worked in the L.A. sewer system. Yeah, but it wasn't sewage. It was like the water. You know,
the water treatment place.
Well, it was like, you know, when water would come out of the off the streets and
go into the wash.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it wasn't you were in these caverns and coming up out of manholes, which is an interesting story. We there were lots of sort of entrances and exits out of manholes, and we were playing cops, so we had guns, and I think that there was cops with rifles and stuff like that. But the camera crew was underground, and one day, and then we had to make an entrance from a manhole cover on the street, and so they had pulled the manhole cover off, and we entered in and out. And one time we went out of the manhole cover, and there were real cops out there with their guns drawn, and all they saw were guys going into a manhole with guns. They didn't, that's all. There was no film company around because the film company was down in the wash. And I think, today, of course, they would have just shot us later. But then they were like, what are you guys doing? And we're filming a movie. I don't think so. I've seen movies filmed before, and there's no camera or anybody else. It's just you idiots. But obviously we explained it. And then when we were on the stage, we had the same sort of entrance and exit, climbing upstairs to a phony manhole thing, and I remember that Bob Forster, who I had all my scenes with,
right.
He liked the idea of having his gun sort of in his holster in a weird upside down way, and I mean it was I'm sure it looked cool on film, but in the movie. This is a spoiler. I'm just letting you know. We're leaving the sewer system, and the alligator grabs me and pulls me, out of the thing.
Right. Officer Kelly.
We're climbing up the manhole thing. I'm looking up, and I'm talking to Bob Forster, and with some sort of dialogue, and I think it was a rehearsal, and his gun, which was like this really heavy, handgun, falls out of his holster, and just hammers me across the forehead.
Oh man!
And I fall off the rungs of the thing. And I fall into the water, and of course the stunt guy who's supposed to, look like he's the elevator grabs me, pulls me out through this horrible fetid, water that had been sitting there for days.
Wow.
And he thought, oh, we must have been rolling. I mean, must have been a rehearsal. And I just remember, because you get hit in the forehead and you bleed a lot. And so I was bleeding all over, everything. And I went to the emergency room, and I think maybe got a stitch or something. But it was just funny. And Bob felt horrible. He was the nicest guy in the world, and he was like, "Oh, God damn it! Oh my God! Perry, I'm so sorry." It's like, and but I still remember the weight of that gun hitting me.
Wow. Now, what about with the mechanical alligator? Because you work with him pretty intimately. He chews you up. How was that to work with?
I remember the rubber alligator a little bit. I mean, there were several of them. One that was just sort of the jaws, and then somebody would manipulate the jaws, and then there was the longer alligator. But it was a long time ago, and I don't remember much of being in the jaws or having it maw me or anything. It just this rubber thing. The thing that I thought was sort of funny was that this was written by John Sayles.
Yes.
I went on to make 4 other movies with John. So
really, no, talk about that, because John Sayles made no secret. He said alligator money went right into making The Return of the Secaucus 7.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. And then I met John after that. So I didn't actually meet him when we were doing Alligator, but when I met him later, we talked about that, and then I did 8 Men Out. He wrote my movie Men of War.
Oh, with Dolph Lundgren, really?
Yeah, and Sunshine State, and he acted in my movie Little Vegas.
Wow, was that fun? Because remember, he's great as the Joe Dante used him as the morgue attendant in Howling. Remember?
Yeah, and John wrote The Howling. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he took over for Terry Winkless. Yeah,
and it was great. I mean, John's actually a really good actor. I think he's very good in 8 Men Out too. But I nearly killed him on my movie.
Little Vegas. How?
He plays this kind of knothead in a trailer park, and I'm using that word knothead a lot. I'm sorry.
No, it's funny.
It's really, I can't come up with any other. But
I know what it's like. I'm probably the same age, and I've done a lot of knothead things in my life too.
Which is important as an education.
Yes.
But John had to stand in this burnt-out motorhome, and which is the main character's motorhome gets burnt up, and he walks into it, and he's always walking around his trailer park with a beer and a beer cozy, and he has this sort of big long scene, and at the end of the scene, sort of the button on the scene is the frame where the door once was falls off, and the stunt the special effects guy pulled the lever and the door falls off, and actually it's not the button of the scene, so the scene continues, and John continued in the scene. And I was standing there. I didn't notice, and then nobody else noticed. But John continued with the scene. But the door had caught him actually in the chest, and right down the chest. And he kept acting, which is an amazing thing. Being John, and only John could do this. He kept acting, not missing a beat. But he had this huge slice, down his chest because of the door, which was this sharp, door. Just, it was. But so that's why, and God, It was, he was my mentor. He was, my friend, and I nearly ended his life. That would have been bad.
No, that would have been bad.
Well, we would have missed had I killed him on that day.
Is this just a real crappy prop door that was hooked on the hinges, or what?
It was a special effect. It was supposed to be a burnout shell of a door, and I probably blame myself. I should have known better where it was going to fall exactly. But it fell where the special effects guy hadn't planned on it falling. So,
Wow.
those are, it's just, you rig something and you should really, I think it taught me that once you rig it, you should watch it, fall before you put an actor there. And, that was a lesson.
Wow. But of course, it has to be one of your mentors. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And it's funny because when we were doing Sunshine State, we were watching dailies, and there was a character and he'd set the scene in a trailer park, and the guy's walking around in a beer cozy. And John goes, "That's an homage to you, Perry."
Oh, really?
Cozy, yeah.
Wow, he recreated the character you had him play in Little Vegas in the middle of Sunshine State.
Yeah, it was great. But that was a fun movie to act in, Sunshine State.
And then what would you say is your style as a director? From your first works all the way to an interview with God, what do you like in the director? What's the sort of on-screen tone you like to set?
Well, I think it really depends on the piece. I teach directing at the AFI Conservatory a little bit, and one of the things I tell my fellows is to really understand the script, and that comes from me being an actor, and it's not to impose a style on that might be your style on a piece. Your style just comes out naturally. But it's really to understand the material and do that homework. And even if you've written the movie, which I have before, but you sort of look at it anew and go, what is behind the text? And once you can really dig in and live with the text for in a sort of intimate way, that's really the most important thing. And I asked Adrian Lyne once this too.
Yeah, because you're the mugger in Jacob's Ladder with Adrian Lyne.
I just wanted to bring that up. That's one of my favorite scary movies. That movie just freaked me out.
Oh my, yeah, that was great. But Adrian was a friend, and that's why I did the movie. I mean, I felt like I did him any favors. He actually did favors by hiring me and paying me, when I had just done my first movie and I needed money, and he knew that, and he was like, here, take this part, and by the way, we'll pay you way too much. But he was sort of this real, because you look at Adrian Lyne and you go, oh well, he's got this definitive style, and how do you follow the style? And he really sort of helped me to understand that that's just the way he sees things. And it's not like, oh, I'm setting out to make it, my style. It's just, he's just got this visual sense, and it just sort of looks like an Adrian Lyne movie because it is.
Wow.
And, so his sort of the evolution of that thought for me is really just to understand the script as best as you can and really help, again, what we were talking about earlier, which is this completing this arc between the script and the actors and telling the story and understanding the story and really, letting the story tell itself.
I remember James Whitmore Jr., another actor turned director, telling me how he would look at Jacob's Ladder once a year as a director to try and figure out how he did it.
Really, Jimmy's a great guy. What a great guy he is.
Extremely.
I haven't seen him in years, but we used to pass each other on Dawson's Creek and something else.
Really?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you when you were on Jacob's Ladder, how many days did you work on that?
I worked 8 days on Jacob's Ladder because, again, I was getting a lot of money, and Adrian wanted to maximize, how much money I got. So he would, I was scheduled to shoot, and it was a scene in Puerto Rico. And so I would show up for work, and Adrian would go, "Oh, let's not do that today. Let's do something else." And, I was on the call sheet for 8 days.
Wow.
And finally I remember the producer going, "Adrian, we got to shoot this guy out. It's 15 minutes of work. Just shoot him. Just get him off the call sheet." And he did. But it was, was dough that I really needed at the moment. And I got to know Bruce Rubin, who became
huge.
Really,
yeah, because with that and Ghost, he just became huge.
Yeah, Ghost came out after that, and he said, I have this movie screening, and we went to see Ghost, and that was amazing.
Was that the first public screening?
It wasn't. I saw it at a screening at Paramount before it had been released, and so it was. It's one of those things where you see a movie and you go, "Wow, this is really good. I hope audiences connect with it." And of course, they did more than I, not more than I thought, but I thought, this is really good. I hope people get to see this movie. It's really amazing.
But you were at that. My brother was at that screening. He said the audience loved it, except at the very end, Patrick Swayze, when he's about to go away for good, talks and talks and talks, and they said that it was like a 99% test screening, except for that ending where he kept talking and talking.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they said that was the only thing they really had the monkey with, to have him say less and get out faster,
I wonder if they made a cut, because I don't. Do you remember that in the final thing?
Yeah, in the final thing, he says a few brief words and goes, but in the original test screening ending, he talked and talked about life in general. Great Bruce Joel Rubin dialogue, but it just went on,
Right. In the end of the movie, you definitely don't want people blabbing away, But and so I wonder, they must have made that cut and probably helped the movie a lot. But I think what I saw wasn't a test screening. It was really the final piece. It was just before it released, and really, it just made all those careers of all those people. The director, what was his name?
The director of Ghost. It was Zucker. Remember it?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I think Jerry Zucker. Directed it.
Yeah, Jerry Zucker. Right. Exactly. Yeah, and I knew him a little bit. He didn't really do much after that, did he?
He kind of didn't have it. Yeah, I think he went back. He produced another Naked Gun and stuff, but Remember he did First Night, I think he did, with Sean Connery and Richard Gere.
Oh, right.
And after that, they weren't really offering him much after that.
Yeah, I mean, Ghost is a pretty amazing,
huge,
job to have for sure.
And of course, Airplane and all that. And well, let me ask you, by the way, how did you wind up writing and starring in an episode of Tales from the Dark Side?
Oh, I was living in New York and I pitched a bunch of stories to those guys at Tales from the Dark Side, and that was one that they responded to, which is funny. It's sort of a weird, quirky Indian story, East Indian story, and I was acting in the last thing I ever acted in on stage, which was Shakespeare in the Park. So I was doing Shakespeare in the Park at night and having to shoot that thing during the day. It was really it was a lot at that time, but that really sort of was the first thing I ever wrote that got produced, and it was such a great experience. And I did it with this guy Ted Gershony, who's gone now, but Ted was such a terrific guy.
And that led to Monsters, right? Because you also appeared on Monsters.
Right, and Ted did that as well. And then the guy, the thing about that Monsters, which is funny, is there was an actor, Michael, I can't remember his name, but he was the actor in the monster suit. It would be Michael Gornick, wouldn't it? Right, it was. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because he did Dawn of the Dead and stuff. Go on.
Right. Oh, wait. But he was also in Twin Peaks, right?
Oh, you mean the little guy, right?
Yes. Right.
Yeah, the little guy. He also appeared in Waxworks. Let me look up his name. You mean the little man from Twin Peaks?
Right. And I think he was basically just. He was just small enough to get into the costume in that episode, but I went and talked to a friend of mine who was a casting director, and I asked him, do you want to act? Because he would do the lines of the thing, and he was really good. And he goes, well, I hadn't thought about it. I'm just here because I can do the lines and I'm in the costume. But he was such a great guy, and
Michael J. Anderson.
Right, exactly. That was it. Right, yeah. So I hope I was able to help his career a little bit by saying you should act, and I told his friend who was a casting director about him, and we all lived in New York, and I think he went on to work a lot.
Wow. Well, the Lynch series alone, Twin Peaks alone, kind of put him on the map,
Yeah.
And he was, but a good guy, good actor, and deserved to be more than, stuffing for a monster suit,
Now, we're in the last 3 minutes. Could you tell us when an interview with God is coming out, where we can see it, and plug your websites? And I'll contact you later for the alligator article.
Okay, good, for sure. An interview with God, if you go to an interviewwithgod.com, it'll take you to the Fathom website, and there you can watch the trailer, which you should watch. If you like the trailer, you'll love the movie. And put in your zip code, and it'll give you, what the closest movie theater is to wherever you're living. So, and it's August 20th, 21st, and 22nd. I think it's a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and it's all over the country.
Wow.
And it's really I think it's a really lovely little movie, and has a lot of heart and great performances by these two guys.
Wow. And where can we follow you? Is there a place our listeners can follow you on, Perry?
I don't have a website, which is stupid, but I'll get a website. I'll figure that out.
Get back to us, Smarty. On behalf of Jeff and Janky, we want to say thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, and also your cast member Eddie Deason is listening to this show, listening to you speak right now.
Eddie, gosh, he is the best. There's nobody in the world like Eddie Deason. Can I say one Eddie Deason story?
Yes.
Eddie would take a cab every day to the set of 1941, and Eddie, do you remember this? You would hit Steven Spielberg up for cab money every day. And I remember Steven going, Eddie, like there's a million guys around here that would give you the $5, for the cab. And he goes, and he would go right to Steven and make him pay.
Great.
Wow. Hey, Perry, thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, guys. It was really fun. Good way to start the day.
Yeah.
And have a great rest of your day. And it was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, Steve Joyner. Bye.
We'll see you tomorrow.
For Carlos Velarde and Ivan
time
of Phantom Zone Effects.
Signing off. Goodbye.
Chill that feed, baby. Wow, great show.